Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, my travels took me to this colonel pictured here. His name is Hume R. Field, and he commanded the 1st Tennessee Infantry, Confederate States of America. He was one tough guy, according to Sam Watkins. For you students of the Civil War, you know Sam's classic memoir, Company Aytch, or A Sideshow of the Big Show and Other Sketches. Watson was a member in the ranks of the 1st Tennessee, and throughout his book, you will find references to the colonel pictured here. What a character, according to Sam Watkins. So I want to read you a little bit about Colonel Field through Watkins' eyes. So the first quote that I want to share is about Field's abilities as a soldier. He says, Colonel Field was born a soldier. I have read many descriptions of Stonewall Jackson. Colonel Field was his exact counterpart. They looked somewhat alike, spoke alike, and alike were trained military soldiers. The War Department at Richmond made a grand mistake in not making him commander of armies. So move over Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee. Colonel Field is on the scene. So here's the backstory on Colonel Field. He was the son of a prominent doctor, a wealthy plantation owner in Giles County, Tennessee. Field was educated at Kentucky Military Institute. In character, according to Field, he was of the strong and silent type. Watkins goes on, he was not a brilliant man, could not talk at all. He was a soldier. His conversation was yay and nay, but when you could get yes, sir, and no, sir out of him, his voice was as soft and gentle as a maid's when she says yes to her lover. Fancy, if you please, a man about 30 years old, a dark skin made swarthy by exposure to sun and rain, very black eyes that seemed to blaze with a gentle luster. I never saw him the least excited in my life. His face was a face of bronze. His form was somewhat slender, but when you looked at him, you first saw at first glance this would be a dangerous man in a ground scuffle, a foot race, or a fight. There was nothing repulsive or forbidding or even domineering in his looks. A child or a dog would make up with him on first sight. He knew not what fear was or meaning of the word fear. He had no nerves, or rather, has a rock or tree any nerves? You might as well try to shake the nerves of a rock or a tree as those of Colonel Field. He was the bravest man, I think, I ever knew. In fact, Field was often out in front with his regiment, facing the hardships of camp and campaign. He suffered 2 battle wounds. At Kennesaw Mountain in 1864, he suffered a bullet that fractured his skull, causing temporary paralysis on his left side. In a skirmish in North Carolina, he received a thigh wound. None of these injuries kept him out of action, and he was soon back with the regiment. Watkins offers another observation. He notes that Field and his command encountered the enemy on a scout in Virginia. Field was armed with a carbine and, according to Watkins, killed 20 or 21 Union soldiers, which led to the belief that one Southern man was equal to 20 Yankees. This and other stories led Watkins to proclaim, quote, later in the war, he was known by every soldier in the Army and the 1st Tennessee Regiment by his manipulations and becoming the regiment to occupy tight places. After the war, Colonel Hume Field settled into the farming life in Union City, Tennessee. He lived to age 86, dying in 1921. He outlived his wife, who died young, and at least one of several children survived him. So there's a story of Colonel Hume Field of the 1st Tennessee Infantry. Observations from Sam Watkins, the master author who wrote the classic Company Aytch. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.